Welcome to Video Village. I'm Mihir Shah, and today I'm talking about the greatest films ever made, according to Sight and Sound's well-known once-a-decade poll of the greatest films of all time. If you ever heard that Citizen Kane is the greatest movie ever made, this poll is the reason why. Stay tuned to learn more. Alright, what is up? This is one of those solo pods that, every time I do, it's always a weird experience. I'm much more used to the conversational episodes with my friends at this point. And so every time I return to do a solo pod, it always feels a little weird. I always feel like I have to mentally just talk to myself for 20 minutes before I actually turn the mic on. Hey, me here. How's it going? It's going good. Thanks for asking. I'm going to the Taylor Swift concert in a month. And if you're wondering, I didn't realize Mihir Shah was a Taylor Swift fan. I like Taylor Swift. I don't know her music that well, and I need to learn all of it by April 30th. So I'm just trying to listen to as much Taylor Swift as I can. What that does to somebody, I'll let you know. But so far, it's been pretty fun. I'm a fan. And I guess what I want to start doing more is just telling you guys what I've been watching. I talk about certain movies, but week to week, day to day, I'm not watching, the movies that I'm talking about sometimes. I'm just kind of watching whatever. So let me tell you what's been happening. I watched a movie called This Is 40, the Judd Apatow, I guess you could call it a rom-com. It's on Netflix right now. Didn't really like it. I thought it was too long. There were some really funny parts. But yeah, overall, not really a fan. I watched an animated movie that came out in 2022 called The Bad Guys on Netflix, and I actually liked that one. At times, it was really, really funny and really surprised me. It's pretty formulaic, and at times it kind of resorts to lowbrow humor, which sometimes it's just silly and funny, but sometimes I'm okay, it's very unsophisticated and not that funny. I watched I guess you could call it a horror movie. It's more of a thriller movie called The Crazies. This came out in 2010. It's a remake of a 1973 movie. Shout out to my friend Liv for randomly just watching this on Friday or Saturday. And I just sat down on the couch and watched it. And it was pretty fun. It's your standard apocalypse, people are going crazy movie with some actually pretty intense scenes. The story is pretty dumb, so I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. But overall, I think I had fun. So just check out that movie. And I've been watching the Hunger Games series. I watched the original movie a couple weeks ago. I watched Catching Fire this past week. And as I'm recording this, Netflix is open on my second monitor, and I'm paused about an hour into Mockingjay Part 1. So I've seen all these movies. I've not seen part 2. So I'm just kind of refreshing my memory. I honestly don't even remember Mockingjay Part 1 that well. So I'm excited. I'm enjoying my time so far. Part 1's a little slow, but I think they're gearing up for an epic conclusion. So yeah, that's been a good time. All right. That's not why you came. Let's get into it. My New Year's resolution of 2023 was to watch all of the movies on the Sight and Sound's poll of the greatest films of all time. Now, what does that mean? What am I talking about? Well, Sight and Sound is a British film magazine that's published once a month by the British Film Institute, or BFI, and every 10 years, it conducts a poll of the greatest films of all time. This has been going on since 1952, and in November of 2022, the results of this rendition of the poll was released. And so now we have a brand new list of 100 movies. So if you grew up like I did and just heard randomly that Citizen Kane is a movie that you should care about and had no idea what Citizen Kane was, this poll is the reason why. For 60 years, Citizen Kane held the number one position on this list, and so was widely regarded as the greatest film of all time. In 2012, it moved to number 2, and in 2022, it's actually sitting at number 3 on the list. So how does this list work? So Sight and Sound basically asks an international group of film professionals, that's critics and directors, and just in general people who are very prominent in the film industry. Basically, each of these people votes for 10 movies that they consider to be the greatest of all time. Now, the term greatest of all time is purposefully vague. It essentially actually says in the letter for the poll that it encourages the voter to decide what the greatest movies mean to them. Is this the most technically accomplished? Is this the best story? Is this just what connects to you? You know, these professionals are trusted with the responsibility of deciding that themselves. I think one thing, like, I'll just pause and say, I think one thing you have to remember when you're reading any list of the greatest movies of all time or seeing anyone talk about it is that the people who make the lists, the people who are voting here, they're not like you and me. They're not just people who may love movies and watch a lot of them all the time. These people are professional filmmakers. This is their livelihood, and it's not just something that they use to entertain themselves or just look at as art. Like, this is informing their lives, their paychecks, their how, you know, the industry that judges them and gives them more money if they do well, and if critics like it, then maybe they'll get an Oscar and they'll bolster their career. They're kind of voting on like the metrics and the framework of that whole institution. At least that's what I think. I think it goes past just a movie, and it is really being looked at here as an art form that changes things, whether that's things in people, things around people, things in the industry, things around the industry. Basically what I'm saying is that, like, if you don't like any of the 100 movies on this list, that power to you. You know, you if movies are not in your life to be an art form and to be something to study and watch at a higher level, that's totally fine, right? Like, there's so many movies out there that would never make this list that may be the only thing that can provide you comfort and provide you a real laugh or a real smile. And that should be revered as well, right? That's a huge part of why people love movies. So all that to say, like, this can somewhat be an academic argument. This can somewhat be like a pretentious argument. I think at the end of the day, it's just reassuring to know that, like, you can have your own opinions, I think. This year, in 2022, there were a lot of changes. So just historically, right, this, obviously, Hollywood and the movie industry is pretty male-dominated, pretty white-dominated. In general, the people who are voting on this list, it's a really small group of people. I'm talking like maybe like 100 people. I think one year it was like 85 critics. It's a really small group of people voting on a metric that we have been quoting for 60 plus years. In 2012, for the first time, they kind of realized that, okay, maybe we should open this up to people outside of like a white male group. And so they moved from 145 people in the poll to 846. And for the first time, this included like programmers and curators and film historians and academics and like archivists and just all sorts of people in the industry that really know movies very well. Even if they've never set foot on a film set, they are champions of film history. So I think that's pretty cool. In 2022, an even bigger shift happened. From 846, we almost doubled and went to 1639 people involved in this poll. And a lot more people of color and a lot more women. And that is really reflected in the poll results that we'll be getting to shortly. There's also a bonus like directors list that is released. So if you're a movie director and participating in this poll, you also get a separate poll to vote on the greatest directors of all time. So obviously somewhat of a similar metric, but pretty different because you're considering a whole body of work. And I find that list to be really interesting as well, and to see how that's shifted. And we'll touch on that briefly towards the end of the episode. Some interesting things that I've learned just by researching this poll and how it's worked historically. It helps to only have one masterpiece in your work of art in terms of like climbing the ranks here. So for an example, like a filmmaker like Stanley Kubrick, who is widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest film director, has a ton of movies that could be considered classics and the greatest. But when you look at his body of work, there's always one movie that is considered to be a no-brainer greatest movie contender, and that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. And so when people are voting on their top 10, it's almost guaranteed that like that movie is going to be thought about and talked about. As opposed to somebody like Francis Ford Coppola, who has Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now. You know, those three movies alone are pretty much always in the conversation for, is this the best movie of all time? And that might hurt his chances, right? Because people who have different opinions on those movies will be splitting the vote. So The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 and Apocalypse Now are all on the top 100 list, but none of them are in the top 10. Which is not always the case, but I think over time it's kind of shown that vote splitting happens as people's relationship to movies change, and you separate from the actual time and are able to kind of think objectively about what you're seeing. Like the Oscars, comedy, horror, not many movies that represent those genres here, which sucks. But we'll get into some twists, some one or two movies that I can call out that are in that category. A lot of movies that you might consider historical favorites and historical classics in pop culture did not make it on the list. A movie like Lawrence of Arabia is not represented here. A movie like Gone with the Wind is not represented here. And I'm not just saying the top 10, I'm saying all 100 movies. The Wizard of Oz, the original movie, is not represented here. And It's a Wonderful Life, the holiday classic, is not represented on this list. All right, so let me just shoot the top 10 movies of all time to you. Number 10, we have Singin' in the Rain, directed by Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly from 1952. Now, this is a musical. It's one of, if not my favorite musical of all time, considering La La Land in that conversation, because I haven't seen actually that many musicals, sorry. But Singing in the Rain is absolutely a 5-star movie. I'm a big fan of it. I had a really fun relationship to it. I watched it freshman year of college and sort of revisited it every year while I was taking communication and screenwriting classes, and just started to love it more and more. And I still sometimes go back and watch movie scenes for that movie. Really fun. Highly recommend it. Number 9 is a movie called Man with the Movie Camera. This is a 1929 documentary. It's considered one of, if not the greatest documentaries of all time, and really just like a blueprint for how documentaries can and should work. Number 8. Now, this is a new addition to the top 10 and might be a new addition to the top 100. It is a movie called Mulholland Drive, directed by David Lynch from the year 2001. So, number 8 on this list is a movie from the last 22 years, which is pretty startling. I know nothing about this movie. I've heard it's crazy, and I definitely will be watching it. Number 7 is a movie called Beau Travail. May not be saying that right. It's from the year 1999, directed by Claire Denis. Claire Denis, considered a fantastic, legendary filmmaker, a French movie director. The tagline is, "Maybe freedom begins with remorse." Ooh, ah. Number 6 is 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick from the year 1968. Surprisingly, never seen this movie, even though I think I definitely was supposed to for a movie class and just like never did in college. Barva, who's on a couple episodes, is a really big fan of this movie. I remember his review of it was something like, "I have no idea what I just saw, but it was beautiful." So any movie that meets those requirements, probably a fun time. 2001: A Space Odyssey is like pretty iconic in our pop culture today still. A lot of like musical themes from that movie, a lot of like just like shots and scenes from that movie are just recognizable as things that you will have seen in pop culture, even if you have no idea what this movie is. I'll play some of the music in the background, but yeah, even the trailer of Barbie. If you look at the trailer of Barbie that's out now, it starts with an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey. That music and those little girls playing are actually in 2001. It's a group of monkeys that are kind of just like on the planet. Yeah, so really cool that it's still relevant after almost 60 years. Number 5 is a movie called In the Mood for Love from the year 2000, directed by Wong Kar-wai. This is a romance movie. It's kind of like a slow burn. Don't know much except for the fact that it's highly influential, and Everything Everywhere All at Once used it as inspiration very openly. All right, number 4 on the list is a movie called Tokyo Story from the year 1953. This is directed by Yasujiro Ozu. It's basically about a family, and the adult kids, don't care for and pay attention to their parents, and one of the in-laws ends up keeping them company, and is a very honest look at family and those relationships. And I think this movie has been around in the rankings for a while as well, so cool to see that it's still there. Number 3 on the list is Citizen Kane, like I mentioned before. Citizen Kane came out in the year 1941, directed by Orson Welles, who it also stars. I've seen this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a 5-star film. I've seen it twice, and both times were pretty long ago. But I just remember being like completely floored by how impressive it was for a movie that came out in 1941. And it's really cool to see that like a lot of things in this movie were the first time it was ever done when it comes to like a filmmaking aspects and techniques, and it holds up a lot of the time. So it's a fun movie. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about what it's about. It's about I guess like an orphan who climbs capitalism to the top of its ranks and basically is corrupted by capitalism. I think he's like in the newspaper business, and then just becomes more and more rich. And goes into politics and all this stuff, and it's basically about like the corrupting nature of power, and has a lot to appreciate about it. Number 2 is a movie called Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, from the year 1958. Now this took the number 1 spot in the 2012 poll, and now is downvoted to number 2. Boo hoo! I watched this movie I think in 2020 during COVID, and I really liked it. Parts of it felt really slow to me. There's a sequence of the main character driving around, and I remember watching it being like, I think I've been watching this guy drive for like 20 minutes. And part of me was having fun watching him drive. And part of me was like, all right, lad, we gotta move this story along. But, you know, that's tough. It's one of those things that, like, when this movie came out, that may not have been considered a slow shot. Our attention span in the modern times is a lot lower. I tend to think that I have better patience than most in movies, but you know, it's still a challenge sometimes. Sometimes you can blame it on pacing, but other times, I have to look in the mirror. This is a movie about a San Francisco detective who suffers from vertigo, and basically is investigating a friend's wife while he slowly starts to fall in love with her. And yeah, it's a fun story. There's a lot of twists and turns, and really, really solid classic mystery. Probably one of the best mystery movies you'll ever watch. Number 1, the greatest film of all time, as of 2022, is a movie with a long title called Jeanne Dielman 23 Quai du Commerce 1080 Bruxelles, I think is how you say it. This is a movie directed by Chantal Akerman from the year 1975. It is over 3 hours long. It basically is about a lonely housewife who you basically see seemingly mundane shots of her just living her daily life and her daily routine, where she lives with her son and takes care of an apartment and cooks and cleans and does everything a housewife is supposed to do. And slowly, as you follow her for longer, those habits and rituals and routines start to fall apart, and she slowly devolves into something else. I've never seen this movie. I've just gleaned all of that from reading about it. This movie is very significant this year. First of all, it's directed by a woman. There are 11 movies on the top 100 list that are directed by a woman. That is up from the 2 movies that were in the 2012 list. And so I think that's huge. I think that shows, like how the open voting system, where they have 1,600 people voting and more diversity and obviously more women voting, can change things and bring movies that have been vastly and greatly underrated to the top of the list. I think that's so cool, right? Like Citizen Kane has been on the list at the very top for so long. Imagine if this movie was on the top of the list for the last 60 years. Would we have been more in tune with French cinema and European cinema and international cinema? Would we have been talking more about female directors and paying attention to them a lot earlier than the last 5 to 10 years? Most definitely. So it just goes to show like how awesome this is. And it's not like this is a new movie. It's not like it's riding a wave of like, oh, this movie is going to not be that popular 10 years from now. No, this movie came out in 1975. That's almost 50 years ago. That's 1 year after The Godfather Part 2. So like, I think this is really, really big. It got 215 votes. Vertigo, for reference, got 208 votes in second place. It's absolutely a feminist movie. It's a landmark feminist movie in that regard. Absolutely kind of shook its fist at patriarchy. And I think that the director, Chantal Akerman, she was really young when she made this. I think she was in her early 20s. And there's been interviews with her where she basically says that like, hey, I couldn't really live up to that for the rest of my career. And I didn't have as good of a career because of that. I'm sure she's made a ton of fantastic movies, but they didn't work like this one did at the time. I think people instantly regarded this as a masterpiece and probably wrote off a lot of her later work. All right, so I wanted to make this episode relatively quick. So I'm going to only talk about one other thing, which is my New Year's resolution. Mihir, how are you going to watch 100 movies this year? I don't know. I have no idea. And I haven't even started on it, I'll be honest. Here are the movies that I have seen from the top 100 movies, the greatest 100 movies of all time. I've seen 16. In order, I've seen Vertigo, Citizen Kane, Singin' in the Rain, The Godfather, which is at number 12, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is at number 30, Rear Window, which is at number 40, North by Northwest, which is at 45. That's 3 Hitchcock movies that I've seen that are on this list. That's unreal. Battleship Potemkin at number 55. Moonlight from 2016. That's at number 62. Right underneath it at number 63 is Casablanca. And right underneath that is Goodfellas. I've seen all 3. A movie called Spirited Away at number 77. I've seen this technically, but I saw it so young that I have it marked as unwatched. So I really need to revisit it. I just remember it gave me nightmares as a kid, but I've heard it's a masterpiece. At number 81, Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times from the year 1936. I've seen that. At number 88, The Shining. At number 93, Parasite, the movie that won Best Picture in 2019. At number 95, A Man Escaped from the year 1956. It's a fantastic jailbreak movie. And at number 98, the final movie I've seen on the list is Get Out, Jordan Peele's instant classic from 2017. So there you have it. That's 16 out of the 100 movies. So I have to watch 84 movies in basically the next 9 months. It's kind of like a very scary task. I think my strategy here is just like don't have a strategy because anytime I'm in the mood to watch a certain movie, I don't want to have to feel pigeonholed into having to watch one of these or I want to watch Tokyo Story, but really I should be watching blah 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 because I'm doing it in this order or I'm doing this director first. Yeah, I don't know. But I think there's a lot of fun movies on here that I've heard of. There's also a lot of movies that I'm like, I have no idea what they are. And I think that's really fun as well, just to be able to like jump into something that you have no idea about. So let's talk like the makeup of the list. I think it's crazy, some of the movies that I've gotten on here. There's a lot of modern movies on here. I'm saying like 21st century movies, which is not always the case. Like I think the first film to win the number 1 slot in 1952 was a movie called Bicycle Thieves that had come out just 4 years earlier. Ever since then, nothing like that has happened. It usually takes 20, 30, 40 years to get on the list. Here are some modern movies that are on the list. Get Out is at number 98. That's crazy. First of all, Get Out is a horror movie. I'm not sure if there's any horror movies on this list besides Get Out. If there are, I guess you could count like Psycho as a horror movie, which is definitely on this list. But this is a genre that is not really ever celebrated by critics at this level. I think Psycho is an anomaly in the pattern. And it's crazy that a movie like Get Out made it onto this list, but goes to show that the impact it's had on pop culture and on filmmakers in the last 5 to 6 years. The movie that won Best Picture in 2020, Parasite. Fantastic movie. It's at number 93 on the list. I think it's now, even 3-4 years later, widely regarded as like a modern classic. And I think it should be. I think it's a genius piece of filmmaking that really had a very strong impact on the culture as a whole, which is really, really cool. More modern movies. Up the list, at number 62, the 2016 movie that won Best Picture, Moonlight, is on the list. I love Moonlight. I think Moonlight is an absolutely like beautiful look at masculinity, and is, I think, one of, if not the most beautiful movie I've seen in the last 10 years. Just visually beautiful. And a really, really cool surprise, at number 30 on the list, is a movie called Portrait of a Lady on Fire that came out in 2019. This is absolutely a modern masterpiece. This is a French movie directed by Céline Sciamma, another movie that is directed by a woman. This is a movie about a painter in the 1800s who was basically hired to paint a picture of a young woman before she's married off to an Italian man, and about the relationship that they form. And it's just like incredibly beautiful. It's a slow burn piece, but about these two women's relationship, and a lot of the images and the way they kind of told this story really stuck with me. I didn't understand a lot of the decisions that they were making until the last 15 minutes, and suddenly everything clicked, and I was just left in shambles. I think it's a fantastic, fantastic movie. So really happy to see that it's on the list and it's this high. I think overall that's just insane. I mean, you also have a movie called Mulholland Drive that came out in 2001. That's at number 8 on the list. So I think it's really cool to see movies that are relatively new getting this much recognition. It goes to show that when you open up the poll to a diverse group of critics and a diverse group of filmmakers and diverse group of professionals, you see that a lot of people can't relate and can't derive value from these older movies that were just about white men or white women. You really have to look at the last 20 years to sometimes see yourself in a movie and see yourself represented in a story and get inspired in a way that can really make an impact. So I think it's super cool to see all of these movies because of that. There's a lot of movies I have not seen on this list, obviously, and I've heard of a lot of them. I just want to shout out some movies that, like, I'm just going to say their names as ones that I'm excited to watch. My plan here is that whenever I watch a really great movie from this list, I'll make a mini episode kind of like this about it, where I just kind of deep dive on it. And in general, I would like to track my progress through this list on the podcast. So I'll give you all updates about this on any solo pods I do. As long as I have an update to make. My thinking is that if I start to watch some movies on this list, it's going to snowball, and I'll just keep watching movies from this list. Because it's always fun to make progress and see a bar go up. Here's some movies that I'm excited to watch from this list. At number 5, In the Mood for Love. I've heard a lot of great things about this movie, and then just recently I learned that it was the inspiration for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and now I'm completely sold. I might watch this in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's probably one of the first ones I'll take on. Apocalypse Now. This is Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece from 1979 about the Vietnam War. I've heard endless good things about this. I've heard this is just one of those movies that like filmmakers always talk about and always reference. And so yeah, really, really excited to watch that one. Do the Right Thing, directed by Spike Lee from 1989. I have not seen a single Spike Lee movie, I don't think, which is wild considering his place in the cultural zeitgeist of movie directors. So yeah, I'm pumped to check out this movie and hopefully use it as like a gateway drug to the rest of his filmography. I love Martin Scorsese. He might be my favorite director. I've also not seen most of his classic movies. So Taxi Driver, which is at number 29 on this list. I have seen Goodfellas, which is on this list at number 64. But I've not seen Raging Bull, which I don't see on the list in general, but is also regarded as one of the best sports movies and one of the best movies in general. So I'm excited to watch Taxi Driver. I've never seen Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's maybe most popular movie. I know, I'm not going to hear the hate. I know. I know, I gotta watch it. I know. Charlie Chaplin's City Lights. And on that same note, there's a Buster Keaton movie on this list. Where's that at? Buster Keaton's movie, The General, from 1926, at number 96 on the list. And I think there's one more movie by Buster Keaton. But Buster Keaton is a very famous like comic vaudevillian almost actor. I'm not sure if he actually was vaudeville, but he certainly seems like the type. Oh, and I've never seen the original Blade Runner. That's at number 58 on the list from the year 1982. Yeah, I really should watch this movie. This has, a really this is a really popular science fiction movie starring Harrison Ford. So yeah, excited to watch that as well. There's a ton on here, guys, and it's hard to say like what's actually going to be good because my favorite movies of all time, I think The Godfather is like an exception, but none of them really are on this list or even closely represented. You know, if they had Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl on the list, we would be saying different things. If they had The Lion King on the list, whew, my goodness, that would be different entirely. But they're not. That's the episode, guys. If you like this sort of content, let me know. I'm happy to talk about film concepts that are outside of an actual movie or a group of movies like this. It's really fun. And if you want to hear more about the movies that are actually on this list, stay tuned. Let me know what I should watch in the comments below. This has been fun. Thanks for listening. And until next time, take care. Special thanks to my lovely girlfriend Kuba Patel for the podcast's artwork, and my good friend Kevin Cow for the music that you're listening to now. You can find more of his music on Instagram at Wagwong Beats. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.